Sex outside of marriage is wrong, and if you're single, you should be dating 2 or 3 people at a time. I'm Jonathan Sanders. This video is a guide for young people on dating based on what I found to be a really good approach, and it's an ancient approach. It's not just my thinking. This is something that's been done historically that our culture has lost. So, first of all, the Bible is very clear. Sexual immorality is not okay. It's bad for you. A couple of analogies that I've heard to use describe sex that I think are applicable is one is it's a fire. And if you put it in a fireplace or in a grill, it's nice and warm. It does its job. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Have a fire every night, you know. But you go and have one in the middle of your living room, and you're going to burn down your house. Well, that's kind of, the fireplace is marriage, and sex, of course, is the fire. Another one that I really like was if you take 2 sheets of paper and glue them together, they now become stuck together. They kind of become one thing. When you have to tear them apart, one of the pages is going to rip. Normally, both of them rip. And, that's another way of describing sex, is it creates an emotional bond between people that, when you pull that apart because they split up, it causes some tearing of paper. There's been lots of studies done by secular psychologists, those kinds of guys, and they have found that sex outside of marriage is unhealthy for the longevity of the person's life. People who have had sex outside of marriage have a higher risk of divorce, especially when both partners have, and, people who have had sex before they got married, struggle with thinking about those old flings and that kind of stuff, and it's just bad. Now, if you have been having sex outside of marriage, you want to stop. Here's one of the big things that helped me: the term "and then what?" Because I had sex before I got married a number of times, and the way that I came into agreement that this is not healthy or good. And I wanted to get married, I wanted to have the kind of connection that you have in marriage, which is way more than just sex, of course. And so, I would meet a girl and think, okay, I could hook up with her, and then what? Right? I mean, it's like 5 minutes of pleasure or 10 minutes of pleasure, or if you're feeling like a real stallion, 20 minutes. And then there's like this awkwardness. It almost always destroys a relationship with a girl. And you've now created a level of intimacy that the level of relationship cannot support, the level of commitment cannot support. So that's another way of looking at this thing, is that levels of commitment require levels of intimacy, and levels of intimacy require levels of commitment. When those get mismatched, relationships go badly, okay? So, let's talk about some solutions to this. First, I'll just say it. I think it's okay to masturbate. Obviously try to minimize it if you can, but there's a lot of people who, insist on not. I don't know. So that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But let's talk about how to avoid all of the difficulties that come with dating today outside of sex. Okay, so that's the first thing, is sex. But in Christian circles in particular, when you are trying to find a spouse and you're dating, or you're not even really sure you want to have a spouse, but you just feel lonely, so you kind of want to date to check that box, here is the approach that works. Make friends with girls and hang out with them as friends, okay? And then eventually you'll marry one of your very good best friends. I mean, you'll probably make a best friend with a girl out of that, and, But let me go into more detail about this. So the first sort of rule of thumb here, and this is what great-great-grandmothers used to have to live by, and grandfathers, was don't go out with somebody 2 times in a row. Don't go out with somebody until you've gone out with somebody else first. And when I say go out, what does that mean? Well, yeah, that can mean one-on-one hanging out, right? Going and having food, and then going to a climbing gym or something fun, or going on a hike or just whatever kind of fun things you like to do. And of course, I definitely don't recommend being alone with girls past like 9 o'clock at night either. But that is not as important is just don't let your heart get tied to a girl if you're a man. And women, don't let your heart get tied to a man. Don't develop a strong emotion towards one person at all until you know that it's from God and you have community involvement. And so let me explain that process a little bit more. Go out with a girl, hang out, have fun, dudes. Then go out with a different girl. Let them know, hey, look, I'm just getting to know girls, right? I don't want to kiss or hold hands or make out or anything like that. I just want to be friends. That's it. And if I start having feelings towards you, well, I'll let you know. And if you could please do the same, let's just agree to hang out and be friends. And if you start to have feelings for me, you can just kind of let me know, and don't be afraid of getting rejected. Because the whole idea of rejection is not a healthy idea. And what I mean by that is that if you can control your heart affection towards somebody, you might start to feel some affection towards them, and then you can go and talk to some friends and mentors and pray into it and say, hey, look, I'm starting to feel this way towards this girl. Will you pray into this and let me know if you think the Lord is saying now's a good time to pursue this or not? And if those people say, no, this is not a good time, then say, okay. Then go to that girl and say, hey, listen, I just want you to know that, like, I'm going to back off a little bit here. I'm starting to have some kind of feelings for you. And it's just not the right time for me yet to get into anything serious. But we can stay in touch or whatever and hang out in groups here and there. But until I think it's time for me to be able to get into a relationship, I'll let you know when that happens. And if you're interested in me at that point, great. Okay. But now if you come back and they say, yeah, that is from God, well, then it's time to have a conversation with that girl and say, hey, look, I'm starting to get some feelings for you here. They're not like super strong or anything yet. But I could see that happening, I've been thinking about you more. But it's the kind of thing that if you don't feel the same way, I don't want to allow my heart to get tied. I don't want there to be any awkwardness between us. I think you're a great friend no matter what. Probably won't hang out with you much if it's not reciprocated from here forward, just because, I don't want that thing to sort of grow, and then we can just kind of still be acquaintances and that kind of thing. And then she'll either say, yeah, I'm feeling the same way, or no, I'm glad you told me that, because no, I'm not feeling like I like you at all. Then you can just say, okay, well, that's cool. Well, let's just kind of stop hanging out and whatever. And then you can go on to the next girl on your list. So I normally, when I was dating and I was implementing this, I had a list of about 4 girls on it that I was just sort of dating, where I would like hang out, get to know them, see what they were like. And I can tell you, I hung out with a couple of girls, and it was very evident that they were not for me. And I didn't enjoy them as a friend even, so I just didn't hang out with them again. But there were some other girls that, yeah, they were cool. Like, we'd go running together and stuff like that, but I wasn't really sure. And yeah, there was kind of an emotional attraction there, but not a lot. It wasn't like, and so I would just be friends with those girls, and so, but then God turned the lights on for me when it came to my wife. I mean, there was just no question in my mind, and then there was no question in hers. And so the reason for this is because it staves off the loneliness. It prevents you from getting your heart attached to somebody whose heart is not reciprocated in attachment. That's how people get their hearts broken, is that they go and sort of convince themselves that this other person feels the same way. They don't validate that information explicitly, and they don't know, and then they don't nip it in the bud. They don't stop it from growing, and they get hurt, and it's stupid. It's terrible. It's unwise. And I've done it. Trust me, I've done it severely. I allowed my heart to get crushed that was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. And so, you know, and you could even show this video to, you know, some girls and some guys kind of thing. Like, this is a good thing to have in a kind of a teaching to have in a college Christian group, as sort of a way to handle dating in college. And it really will get rid of a lot of the awkwardness and the pain that a lot of people experience through dating and that kind of thing. So hopefully you hear what I'm saying. Again, I really don't believe that sex outside of marriage is okay. If you're doing it, it's time to repent and stop. But I also think it's healthy to date and get to know girls and, you know, just learn what it's like to interact with the opposite sex as friends more. And, you know, you'll make some friends out of it that you'll know, and it's a really good thing. All right, take care.